I remember one case when the question was so ambiguous that I did not know whether to answer in the affirmative or not. And I fill it in the application, the insurer sees all of this information, and then they will either make a decision to accept my application or reject my application.
Correct. Now you cannot never know what problems are going to come in the next 6 months or something like that. Rather, if I make a claim after 1 year and then they notice oh, you already have diabetes, you did not disclose this in the past.
What are some of the key things that I have to remember while filing a claim that people should generally be concerned about?
So if you are developing any new condition after you purchase the policy, if you inform the insurance company with the specific details, then you should not have any problems in terms of getting your claims.
Hello people, today we are here with a brand new episode talking about something that I know a lot of people are worried when they're buying either health or term insurance. However, in this specific episode, we are only going to talk about health related claims, but still, we have a special guest with us who will probably walk you through some of the nuances, some of the things that you should generally be aware of when you're making a claim, so that when you have to make a claim, the insurer doesn't end up denying it for some trivial reasons. So today we have with us Bhanu. He's the co-founder and CEO at Ditto. He's built this startup from the ground up, and he probably has a lot of insights that the general public may not be aware about, simply because he works very closely with insurance partners and is very closely associated with our operations function. So Bhanu, welcome to the podcast. We are trying something new here, something different. Hopefully this will be useful to our audience. So I'll start off with the first question. Should you actually be worried about claims when you're buying an insurance policy? And if that is in fact the case, shouldn't the first point of vigilance begin when you're filling the application? What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, you should definitely be worried about whether you'll be getting your claims or not. But if you are to go ahead and submit all the details and share all the information that you have, then the insurance company will not have any reason to go ahead and deny your claims.
Right.
Most of the times, the claim rejections will happen for two reasons. One, the customer is not declaring all the information. Yeah. So if you're withholding information, it's difficult for the insurance company to assess what is the risk that they're taking. So they'll always say, oh, you're trying to cheat or game the system, so we're not going to pay the claims. Second is about if the company doesn't want to go ahead and give the claims well, so they'll always find a small loophole, which each of us will kind of would have left something out there for the insurance company to find.
Correct. So let me focus on the first reason. I agree with you in that I think a lot of times issues with claims happen when you're filling out the application, because you may not be fully privy to some of the information that you should disclose when you're filling the application. For instance, I remember one case when the question was so ambiguous that I did not know whether to answer in the affirmative or not. I remember there was this one case in my proposal form, right, where they asked, have you had any surgeries? Now, I've had a very minor procedure done once. I remember on my ankle, because there was some issues, niggling pain, etc. But it was so minor that I didn't even feel like whether I should disclose this or not, because it felt inconsequential. Do you think that is one of the main reasons why people end up not filling information? It's not because they want to lie, it's because they think something is so inconsequential, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of times people don't end up reading all the questions that the insurance company is asking.
Right.
And so what happens is, a lot of times you had a surgery so long ago that you don't even remember it.
Yeah.
Now, the typical question that the insurance companies ask over here is, okay, have you had any surgeries in the past?
Yeah.
Now, it's very vague.
Yeah.
Right. Now, if you were to open up the entire questions, where they'll have like 10 to 15 different questions, and as you read through each of the questions, you will be able to clearly identify then it will at least help you to remember, oh, I had this particular ankle problem, or I had this particular thyroid problem sometime in the past.
I think what you're saying is sometimes they'll have questions like, have you had any past medical conditions? And if you type no, you can just go to the next slide. But if you say yes, it'll open up like 10 different questions, right?
Yes.
But don't you think that is also misleading from the insurance company's part? Because they should probably show all these questions up front, right?
So they do show some of the questions, but the number of questions that they have, if they look at the larger population, not all of them will be relevant to a lot of people, right? So just to make the entire purchase journey easier, some companies typically kind of give one single option where you say no and then you can proceed ahead, right? But it makes sense for you to take this extra a minute or two to go through all the questions, read them properly, and then accordingly answer whatever the issues or whatever the surgeries that you had in the past.
Right. So the main three caveats that the insurance companies generally want to talk about is any surgeries in the past, any medication in the past, or have you had any adverse medical conditions in the past, right? Say cancers, tumors, polyps, any growths, any other, major issues, TB, stuff like that, right?
Yes.
And let's suppose I forget, right? I don't remember, I've answered everything in good faith. I did not remember a small issue that I had, say, say 8-10 years ago. Then what happens? Because I know that IRDAI guidelines clearly state that any medical issue can be categorized as a pre-existing medical condition only if a diagnosis has been sought 48 months before the date of the policy inception. So in the last 4 years, if I've had any medical diagnosis, right, for any condition, any issue, then fair enough, that can be disclosed as a pre-existing condition. But IRDAI guidelines clearly state that only it's, the period is only for 4 years. So how does it matter if I've had anything like, maybe 10 years from now? What is the point?
Yeah. So if you had something 10 years in the past and you are currently not having it, let's just say that, you recovered from cancer.
Yeah.
But for the insurance company, even though you have recovered 7-8 years ago,
Right.
this information is very crucial, because if I consider a fully healthy person and if I consider someone who recovered from cancer, their immunity systems, their entire thing kind of changes.
Risk portfolio.
Risk portfolio kind of entirely changes, and the insurance company may tell ki, hey, I don't want to take that level of risk over there.
Correct.
Right? So it's better that you disclose this particular information also.
Yeah.
The only thing that the IRDA guideline helps you to put is they won't be putting this particular condition as a, they won't be basically putting a waiting period on this one if they're accepting the policy.
Got it. So if I say that I have had TB ka issue maybe, say 8 years from now, and I fill it in the application, the insurer sees all of this information, and then they will either make a decision to accept my application or reject my application.
Correct.
There will be no counter offer saying, ki, listen, I classify this as a pre-existing condition, so pay the extra premiums or wait for 3 years before I cover this condition. Nothing of that sort.
Nothing of that.
Because the medical diagnosis happened, maybe 8 years from here.
Yeah.
So that's the only difference.
Yes. Say for example, you had a knee fracture.
Yeah.
Now it happened 6 years ago.
Right.
And the insurance company, when you're asking, they'll clearly ask you, what is your current status? Now, if you've told ki I'm completely fine right now, there is no problem. Okay. So they won't be putting any kind of a waiting period on this.
Got it.
But if you take something like cancer or a heart surgery,
right,
then they'll tell ki this particular plan may not be available for you.
Got
you may have to go for some specialized plans if this particular insurer is offering at all.
Got it. So that doesn't preclude you from not disclosing information that probably happened 10 years from now. Anything that you can possibly remember, you should disclose, because that could be a point of contention in the future, right?
Yes.
In fact, when we're speaking about this, I remember one case, and I think this is a case from a friend of mine, right? So who had ported a policy. I remember this was in the early days of Ditto. And what ended up happening was he was diagnosed, like he had bought a policy for his dad, he had ported to one of our insurance partners, and what ended up happening was he had to make a claim for, I think it was throat cancer, right? It was cancer in the throat or the upper respiratory system, and what ended up happening was when he went to the doctor initially, the doctor in his diagnosis report had made a small mention. He had said that the patient has been complaining of issues pertaining to swallowing food about 6 months or 7 months earlier, right? And while he had ported, the porting had happened only 2 months earlier, right? So he had ported the policy only 2 months earlier. During the medical questionnaire, he hadn't disclosed anything, because look, he had problem, like if you have some throat, slight throat mein kitch, or you have some problem swallowing, you think it will go away on its own, right? It's not a condition, and he's not gone to the doctor either. But there was a question in the questionnaire saying ki, have you had any changes in your body or feeling or sensation or something of that sort in the past few years, right? In the recent past. And he said no. Now, when the claim went to the insurer, I remember we had first seen it, but the insurer had initially wanted to investigate that further, because if they could prove that this person had deliberately not divulged this information related to his swallowing problem, then they have grounds to deny the claim. So in this gray area, when you don't even think it's a problem, what should any customer do? Because then it can be grounds from claim denial, right?
Yeah. So you just have to establish your case very clearly that 6 months ago you never had this particular problem.
Correct.
Now if the treating doctor is clearly kind of giving it to you, right, that okay, this particular customer had this throat pain 6 months ago,
yeah,
right, but it was not of big consequence.
Or they hadn't taken doctor ka diagnosis earlier,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. So if the doctor is clearly telling ki, hey, I've diagnosed this only last week or
Correct.
in the last 1 month, right? Where the doctor is truthfully stating ki whenever this particular problem was diagnosed, and the insurance company will just match it with, say, okay, the diagnosis happened last week, but this policy was purchased 3 months ago. Now, you have enough grounds to simply context that we did not, disclose this on purpose. Right?
We did
but
not disclose
we did not disclose this on purpose, but it just happened, right?
Yeah.
Now you cannot never know ki what problems are going to come in the next 6 months or something like that.
Correct.
Now even in my case, when I got the plan for my mom, she had
Which plan, by the way?
my mom had she has Optima Restore.
Yeah.
Right, from HDFC.
Yeah.
Now when we purchased the plan, she had only blood pressure. Now they conducted certain medical tests and they asked us to pay a little extra premium, which we did.
Yeah.
Now 7 months or 8 months into the policy period, she is now diagnosed with the diabetes as well.
Correct.
Right? Now, in this case, what we did was we immediately informed the insurance company.
Yeah.
In the recent medical checkup, these are the reports, or this is where the HbA1c levels, the diabetic level kind of shot up, and the doctor has recommended her to be put on XYZ medication. And we inform the insurer so that the insurer takes this into conscience immediately. Rather, if I make a claim after 1 year and then they notice ki, oh, you already have diabetes, you did not disclose this in the past.
Correct.
So if you are developing any new condition after you purchase the policy, if you inform the insurance company with the specific details, then you should not have any problems in terms of getting your claims.
Correct.
Now, a lot of times people typically don't go out and update the information with the insurance company.
Correct.
Now, you need not update that you had a small throat infection last week.
Right.
But if you think it is any of those big questions, right? Like let's say blood pressure, thyroid,
or
diabetes.
any surgery also, like if
any
you had a hip
also.
replacement surgery, etc.
Yeah.
Then
Correct.
maybe
you would have typically gotten the claim from another policy, let's say your
Corporate
corporate
policy.
plan, or sometimes you'll think, hey, this is a very small surgery, I don't want to go through the entire process, it's just a 5,000 rupees, so I'm just getting it done. But you inform the insurer so that whenever you have, they clearly have your entire history with you.
Yeah. But if it happened in the past and I did not disclose it in the application because I thought it was inconsequential and for which I did not seek medical opinion in the past, what I have to do before filing a claim is get a first diagnosis report clearly stating that my treating doctor had stated that this is the first time that this issue has been diagnosed.
Correct.
And this has not been diagnosed in the past. That will help expedite the claim. Basically, that's what you're saying.
Yes.
Right? Got it. And another question that I want to ask is, look, there are I remember when we were simplifying these policy documents, each policy document was probably 40, 50 pages, even more sometimes, right? And they would have tons of conditions. Now, there's always a point where an insurance company could go in and say, hey, listen, there's this thing, there's this condition, so we don't have to pay out because of X and Y thing, just and reasonable clause, all of that, right? So let's suppose, right now I've bought a policy. What are some of the key things that I have to remember while filing a claim so that I don't have to then go to the hospital again and make sure I submit these documents and it doesn't take a while for my claim to be processed? One is obviously you make sure that the treating doctor clearly states that this is the time of first diagnosis so that at least they don't ask for again the first diagnosis report. But are there any other things that people should generally be concerned about? Right?
So certain processes or certain surgeries have become so common now that the hospitals will offer you as a single package.
Correct.
Right? Say for example, if you're hospitalized for dengue.
Right.
Now you may be hospitalized for 3 days or you may be hospitalized for 1 day. So there is no fixed cost over there.
Correct.
But let's say you're getting a cataract surgery done. It's a pretty standard procedure.
Right.
And the hospitals are simply coming up with a package saying ki for one eye, we are going to give you, this is the type of lens that you can use and the cost is 50,000.
Correct.
Now, once you're discharged, you apply for the claim, the hospital will give you the bill. Now, mostly what they do is they simply put this as cataract surgery for left eye. The cost is 50,000 rupees and they'll give you a single invoice.
Got it.
Now, the insurance companies, if you apply for a claim with this, they will simply keep asking you for more and more documents.
Got it.
Because the insurance companies want to look at...
What kind of documents usually?
So, basically they would want the entire breakup of all the costs.
Got it.
Right? Say for example, in the entire 50,000 cost, there is a cost of the lens that the doctor is putting in your eye.
Correct.
There is a cost that the surgery or the surgeon is doing.
Right.
If there is an anesthesiologist or you will be put in the hospital room for a few hours.
Yeah.
Right? There are charges for that.
Yeah.
Now there are charges for the doctor consultation as well.
Yeah.
Right? Now they want to see the breakup of all of these costs.
Correct.
Because what happens is when you are simply clubbing, now they may be overcharging or the insurer would be simply thinking this way, right? they want to pay only whatever is the reasonable expenses. Now, if you tell ki this particular doctor consultation is for 5,000 rupees,
Right.
now they may say ki, hey, this is too much.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Because that area doctors may not charge that much.
Yeah, correct.
Or
And-
they know
and-
it's completely out of line, with expectations
Correct.
in the
Yeah. So
general
as long as you get a clear breakup, you need not get a breakup for literally like every penny that you are spending, but whatever are the typical components that you have.
So you have to go to the hospital and tell them to break it up as much as possible,
Yes.
so that they don't query it again and again, saying
Again.
ki, what is the invoice amount of the specific lens, or say what is the consultant fee, were there attendants, room rent pay, were
Yes.
there duty charges, duty doctor charges, etc. So all of those
So
questions.
this is
don't
exactly
apply.
what happened in my father's cataract surgery.
Right.
Right. So the hospital that he picked was not part of the network, so we had to file a reimbursement.
Got it.
And the hospital simply gave one.
Reimbursement meaning you have to first pay and then wait for
Yeah, and once the my father is discharged, I get all the bills,
Right.
all the documents. So they'll even do whatever the eye checkup they have did. All those documents.
So
have
how
to
many
submit.
back and forths did you have to do?
I had to do at least 3 back and forths because the hospital did not give the full detailed
Correct.
breakup.
Yeah.
Right. And because there is an implant
Yeah,
put into the body, now they want to know the exact serial number of that also.
The sticker, right?
The sticker that
and
they have.
sometimes they don't give you the sticker.
They don't give the
right?
sticker because they're like, this is not required.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
anytime if you're having any implants,
Yeah.
right? It can be an ear implant, or it can be a, say you have, they're replacing a bone with a, a steel rods or something in
Yeah,
your leg.
yeah, yeah.
So you get all of those details, as many details as you can,
Yeah.
and you submit it. Now I got the claim, but it's just that the back and forth, right? I had to visit the hospital a couple of times to get all the details in the exact format that the insurer is asking for.
Yeah. So this was part 1 of our how to deal with claims, and we had a special guest Bhanu, but we have a part 2 and Bhanu will probably talk about more things related to claims processing and the things that you should be wary of when you're making a claim. Also, like always, if you need any help with insurance, be it health insurance or term insurance, and if you're somebody who's worried about what will happen when I'll eventually have to make a claim, make sure you talk to our advisors at Ditto, because they'll help you end to end for free. And when eventually you have to make a claim, somebody will build a case for you and somebody will be on your side as opposed to the insurance side. So yeah, that's it from me. We will see you in part 2 again, where we'll discuss more nuances. Until then, happy insurance hunting.